But the bottom line is, with billions of people on the planet, if you find out what that truth is for you, if you claim that North Star, you are a magnet to the right fitting people. And so we're not going to slay the dragon of imposter syndrome once. We're going to slay that dragon daily or moment by moment, because we have to remind ourselves building a personal brand is really not about me. It's about the people I'm being called to serve. Even the best of the best would admit that imposter syndrome or fear of showing up is still a dragon that they need to continue to slay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I have an exciting show today because I have known my next guest for almost a year now, and she has helped to shape the trajectory of my personal brand. And if you like what you're seeing here, I would suggest that you approach her. Her name is Kristen Hartnagel, and she is an amazing, amazing person. She is the CEO of Evolve Now. Having been a part of 4 startups, Kristin has worked with New York Times bestselling authors, award-winning talent agents, and celebrities, as well as billionaire influencers. As a keynote speaker, professional singer, well, we're going to talk about that, and business coach, Kristin helps you evolve into your next level of greatness in your business and your life. Kristin is also a certified trainer for Infinite Possibilities, a program to develop your ability to see the future for what is possible and not be constrained by limiting beliefs. How you show up to share your gifts and talents really is a spiritual endeavor, and Kristin is the master at drawing out your best. As a founding team member of the global personal branding company Brand Builders Group, of which I am a member, she helps her clients build and scale their businesses and personal brands. Kristin is on a mission to help you release the past, live in the present, and take charge of your future. And I'm so glad to have you here, Kristin. Thank you for being here.
Wow, what an honor, Adam. I mean, I have seen you through all of the stages of I have an idea to now this is a full-fledged business. You have an amazing podcast, and I'm just so excited to see everything that you've evolved through. It's been super fun to be a part of your journey.
Well, thank you. And I know you have an incredible journey as well. And just the work that you've helped me, the things that you've helped me to level up in the last year have been amazing. It's changed my brand completely. I was a triathlon coach. Now I'm a leadership coach, and I talk more vulnerably about fear, and everything just feels right because of your help, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that, and we'll dig in. But I want to kind of start because we share a common passion, and I want to dig into that first because you incorporate music into your keynotes. You're a musician, and I would love to hear about that because I love music. I've played music all my life. I found it to be highly therapeutic, it just gives me energy. How do you incorporate that into your keynotes and into your healing practices?
That is a great question. You know, I think the reason I became a speaker is kind of through the journey of being a vocalist and a performer. As I was being asked to sing songs that I had written, songs that my sister and I co-wrote together, at some churches in the area, some New Thought and just kind of like the spiritually open-minded churches, they were asking me questions about like, how did you come up with that song? What inspired that song? Like, that song moved me so much. I would love to hear more. You should speak. And that was like just a seed that was planted. And I'm like, okay, well, if I were to speak, I would want to speak about what I know, and what I feel like I know is my own spiritual journey, my own kind of how I have come to the place where I am, being at peace, being fulfilled, being happy. And that is the inspiration for all of my songs. And so I've been asked to speak for these New Thought churches, unity churches all over the country. And that stemmed from singing. So to me, music communicates at the level of the soul. It bypasses the thinking mind. I mean, we can be transported if we hear a song. We can have a flash of where we were when we heard it the first time. And there's something that happens psychologically when we hear somebody speaking about something. We're assessing. We're saying, do I believe that? Is that true for me? And we don't do that with music. Music, we're like being entertained. It kind of goes through any kind of filter and it sits with us. And some people just are moved by the melodies and don't even pay attention to the lyrics. And others are really looking at every single word and moved by the lyrics. But either way, it comes into your being in such a different way. So when people ask me to do a keynote, I often just ask, would it be appropriate for your audience to weave in some songs that have a message of their own that kind of reinforce what we're trying to do for the people who are going to come and see this? And sometimes it's a fit and sometimes it's not. But when it is, it's super fun for me.
That's so true. And I feel like you've really tapped into something there that's a powerful niche because it's like when you watch a movie and imagine, I always imagine if you watch the movie without the music, there's no movie there, right? I mean, there's nothing there. There's no story. But what makes the story in those movies and it is the music. It brings out that emotion, brings out that power. And and even bringing that back to keynotes that I've seen, I mean, there's been some powerful keynotes, but they require a powerful story and a powerful entertainment. And to bring music into that, I think is a really, that's a hugely powerful benefit. And I think that you're creating memorable experiences for the audience there. So that's profound. And then, yeah. So what drew you to speaking? What was the catalyst that got that started? How did you get into that?
You know, I feel that there are so many people who are on their own journey and they're looking for breakthroughs. And just in sharing in small groups, in my one-on-one coaching, I used to do this thing called Sunday movie meetings where we would watch something like an inspiring video that really kind of challenged current thinking. And then we just had a conversation afterwards. And there were people who were just like, man, you have such a different perspective. I would love to hear more. And so that and the singing led to more stage time. And just when people responded, it felt like I was in the right spot. And so if there's a way that I can serve people's expansion and people's spiritual growth, and that's speaking, I love it. It's just really become part of something I want to do more of.
Yeah. Did your story, that your personal story, play into that at all? Just into your passion for what you want to bring to the stage or into the world?
It absolutely did. So I lost my mom and my dad and my sister in a short amount of time, and people were wondering, like, how can you still be so happy? Like, that's tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, and yet to be in your presence, you just still radiate such joy, and like that's an honor to hear that. And it made me think, I think people are struggling with grief. I think people, like, they aren't processing it well. And there's been a lot of fear and a lot of loss, and people aren't navigating that to the best of their ability. And even people who are really dialed into their spiritual journey, they're like, I know all the tools. Why aren't I experiencing more peace or fulfillment or grace after grief? Mm-hmm. And so I think that personal journey has lent itself well to being able to help from the stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd love to dig into that a little bit more, because that sense of loss and grief is, as you say, there's and we've all experienced it. A lot of people in my audience have experienced it, and that may be the root of their fear. That's the root of where a lot of my fear comes from, is this grief of things that I've experienced. or that I've gone through, and I know that that's resonating now, as we're coming out of this uncertainty of COVID, as we're going through economic uncertainty or loss of loved ones. How do you maintain that joy, and how do you process that grief? Is there anything that you can share to help people to get through that process?
Yeah, I really feel that it's a individualized thing. There isn't a one size fits all way to go through grief. I think the biggest recommendation that has worked for me and worked with a lot of the people that are my clients is to honor where you are and to detach. And so one of my 3 steps in a typical breakthrough coaching session is to detach with amusement, because we can get so, we kind of feel like we are our thoughts. And when we can understand that our brain is the generator of thoughts, our brain is thinking thoughts because that's the function of that organ, and realize that the brain is just doing its job. It's thinking thoughts, and I am not my thoughts. I am way more. The essence of what I am is spirit, and I'm in a physical body. So I say to detach with amusement so that you can become a witness to the thinking and to say, what is this? Is this a pattern of thinking? Is this the brain just having a thought fire through neural transmitters down a well-worn path, and it's really not what I want to be thinking? It's hard to say that when it comes to grief, because I don't want to say detach with amusement. It's not really amusement that we want to use in that instance. Sure. However, if we can detach and say, this is an emotion that is here right now. I'd like to honor that it's here. I'd like to let it move through me. It's like grief can be an amazing visitor. We just don't want to let it move in. And so, yes, you can be my honored guest, and I'm going to just be present with you, but I am not going to let you unpack your bags. And so this detachment process can be, it's almost like, I know what I'm feeling. I know what I'm thinking. Now, how long do I want to feel this way? And it can be 10 minutes. It can be 10 hours. It can be 10 days, 10 months. But my gosh, I don't want it to be 10 years. And so it's like that witness of, I'll let you be here. I just don't want you to take over. And that little bit of detachment helps us make a decision about that.
Yeah. So stay for tea, but not overnight. We don't have any beds available.
I like that. Right? Stay for tea, not for an eternity. Yes.
Hey, there you go. I really like
that. You just helped me with a pithy pillar point, didn't you?
That is why you're a brand strategist. I swear, that is incredible. Yeah. So the amusement part, I mean, I know that a lot of people might struggle with that because of finding amusement in grief. I know we tend, and this may sound strange, but a lot of people, and I include myself in on this, may find comfort in that victimhood in a way, like feeling like the victim, because at least it's the comfort we know instead of this comfort we don't know. But I notice a theme here because I just talked with another friend on who was on this podcast, Mike Ergo, who lost over 29 of his friends in Fallujah when he fought there, and so obviously the grief that he went through was incredible, but how he kind of found that peace or started to find some of that peace was through somewhat of a dark humor, and so there was amusement that he found there, and so you said it was highly individualized. Would you say that that's kind of where that's coming from, is finding your source of what that amusement is, or how do you justify the amusement part of it within grief?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because we are so close to it. You used the word victim, and that can also be really hard to hear when you're in the throes of grief. But we have to understand that what we're allowing our minds to think is a choice. And often when we're in the throes of emotion, we don't see that there's a choice. We think that this, like, who else would feel any other way? And so if we can step aside and say, when I'm taking myself too seriously, or when I'm thinking that I am the thoughts that I think, I can really get lost. And I don't want to spiral out of control. Like, I still have a reason. If I'm still here, there's a reason for me being here. So I'd like to find out what that is. And I'm not trying to wish grief away. I do think honoring it is super important. It's just, and it still comes in waves. Like, it's not a one and done. But to find the humor in it is to say, oh, there I go again. It's like, the synapses are firing these thoughts. I've been in grief. So now that's a new well-worn pathway. That's a new pattern of thinking. But I've committed to doing something else besides living in this grief. And so I want to recognize, this is kind of back to the detachment with amusement and the ability to introduce some humor, is to say, my brain is just doing its job. It's triggering a thought. It's like it's wanting me to pull up a chair and watch a movie, but I know how the movie ends. I'm still here. Maybe I'm still sad at times, but I don't have to pull up the chair and watch the whole movie. I can say, wait a minute, I would rather, like, I want to take ultimate responsibility for how I feel. And there's a balance between honoring grief and deciding not to let it move in. And that balance is honor, like, I'm going to stay here, but not forever. And then I'm going to use all the tools that I have access to help me recognize there's more and what could another choice be. So I like to think of that, the part of your brain that is doing that well-worn pathway, trying to get you to pull up a chair and watch a movie. It's not evil. It's not, it's not trying to make you stuck. It's just doing its thing. So instead of getting mad at my brain, I would rather treat it like an innocent baby and go, oh, there, little brain. I know what you're trying to get me to do. You're trying to make me go down that rabbit hole again. You're trying to get me to watch that movie. And I'm not going to do that this time. Or I am for 10 minutes, or I am for 2 hours, or I am for the day, but I'm committed to more. And so that there's a little bit of humor in that. It's like, I'm just going to let you try and do what you do, but recognize that you're wanting me to go somewhere I'm not willing to go anymore. And then I'm going to treat it differently.
That's I appreciate that, because that kind of brings into perspective what that really means of detaching, but through amusement. It's almost like and all of these tools, the individual tools, bring us back to the present. It's just a moment of presence, and and some of it, those of us who use humor, because I use humor a lot too, even though people might not think it's funny, but I do. But but the whole thing there is it's really just kind of bringing it into the present. It's either snapping somebody out into this new moment, but those kind of moments of recognition and really what I find mindfulness to be is it's awareness and curiosity. I mean, so you're aware of what your thoughts are doing in whatever way, shape, or form that looks like, and then getting curious about it. And you kind of you get a lot into that that mindfulness kind of aspect too. And I think, and you have something that's called the Miracle-Mindedness, where you are kind of practicing that. What is that? So what is that process? What does that look like?
Miracle-Mindedness to me is exactly what you said. It's being fully present. And I love your, flow over fear, or from fear to flow, because any time that we're not fully present, it's typically because we're thinking about something that we can't control, which is the past, or thinking about something that we can't control, which is the future. And so if we can instead just say, this moment right now is where I want to take responsibility for how I feel, and I want to feel good. And so miracle-mindedness is that state where it's almost a surrender to, I want to be shown what is mine to do. And I know I'm going to get guidance when I can stop my own outbound need for control. It's a control thing to want to know how I'm supposed to do something. And I draw my how-to from past experiences or from future thinking about ways other people have done it. And what I would rather do is be fully present to you show me what is mine to do. When my sister was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she asked Spirit, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And she heard, well, do it differently. Have fun with it. And she's like, have fun with a cancer diagnosis. And yeah, so she decided she was going to call it her cancer dance. She was going to spell the word differently instead of Cancer. She spelled the word answer with a capital A and a lowercase c in front of it. It did not exert power over her. In some ways, whether she was aware of the answer or not, she knew it was an answer of sorts. Because we believed, my sister and I, and in this spiritual community, it's like everything that's happening is happening for us. I may not understand it. I may not even like it. But I have to trust that if it's happening, it's in divine order, or it wouldn't be happening. And so mine is to just get out of my own way and say, show me what this is about. What am I to do with this? And so she decided she was not going to look online. She was not going to research everything there was to know about her diagnosis. And she instructed everybody, if you need to do that for you, go ahead, but please don't share what you've learned. I want this to be my experience and have it unfold for me as in such a unique way, because it is as individual as a fingerprint. Like, my journey is my journey. And she was in stage 4 for 7 years, going in and out of remission. She lasted a really long time.
Wow.
Through that. So this ability to say, like, miracle-mindedness to me is saying, I don't want to draw from Kristinness. I don't want to draw from my past, which would project some future through a filter. And I don't want to be trying to pick from a number of possible futures, because I can't control that either. Instead, miracle-mindedness is allowing that state of grace to be guided, to receive intuition or downloads. And I feel that really closely because when I write songs, they come to me in their entirety, the melody and the lyrics, and I better get somewhere where I can jot that down or record it into my phone, or it's gone. So those downloads happen, and they only happen if I'm out of my own way, and I'm kind of open for that. So we want to quiet that outbound energy, and in meditation, that's like a gift we give to allow more that's always there for us to actually reach us.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that idea that if you think of a song at that time, you lose it if you don't write it down right away. I've been in board meetings where I've just thought, oh, that's a great song, and then I lose it because I can't write it down. But yeah, but would you say that? So obviously, having a family member, a loved family member, with a stage 4 cancer for 7 years. I mean, that's tragic. And I mean, very painful to have to go through as a loved one. Would you say that the joy that she was able to find, in the amount of joy that she was able to find in that, and the way she reframed it in some way, did it help you and your family to really, I guess, find the joy as well, or was it? Yeah.
I mean, we worked on that together. It was very much, and don't get me wrong, there were moments where she would be real with me and cry and even say the words, I don't want to be going through this. Less why me. I don't think she ever went there, but just like, can I choose something different? Like, I don't like this. But most of her journey, the vast majority of her journey, was in acceptance. Like, she wasn't saying, I'm going to let the cancer do what it's going to do. she was employing every spiritual tool she knew and going the traditional and naturopath, like just open to what should I be exploring. So she created her chemo sabi. She got a group of friends who would go to her chemo treatments, and she called it Chemo Dreamo Time. They would sing. She would kiss the bag of toxic chemicals. I mean, she made it a new ritual, any chance she could to make it feel good. And I think that elation and that choice and that just ability to reframe every moment was a huge gift. And so we worked on that together in the times when it wasn't as easily accessible. I helped remind her, and then she helped remind me. She's like, you are going to miss me more than you could ever imagine, but I just want you to know I will still be there in some capacity. And yeah, it's been a beautiful, we called it delicious because when she got diagnosed, it was as if both our parents said, oh, hell no, there's no way a child is going to go before us. And they both died. But she stayed around long enough to be with our mom when she made her transition and with our dad physically when he made his. And then I was with her when she made hers. So we've been kind of on the same spiritual plane for our whole lives. And I wouldn't want to take any of that away. It is a sacred time to be with someone when that is happening to them. And we were able to remind each other how to be joyful in that journey every chance we could.
I'm so grateful that you're willing to share that openly, because there are people that need to hear that. I know that there's people that are going through similar things, and you know, cancer is such a prevalent thing in our society, and so is just, you know, this idea of grief or having to go through things. It's easy to say, why me, in those situations, you know, and but what you've demonstrated there and what you've shown within that loving community of transition, even the language that you're using there is powerful, because it's providing a new meaning to that whole scenario. It's providing a whole new meaning. It could have been 7 years of why me, but instead it was 7 years of joy, love, and just strengthening that relationship so that it's still with you today. And I want everybody who's going through that to hear that. And I hope that I so love that you're communicating that message as hard as it must be to communicate it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think I'm very grateful that I had the kind of job where I literally could be there. You know, as a coach, I could go to the hospice or hospital room to the side and do my coaching, and yet then be present when I wasn't coaching. And what a gift. Like, not everybody has that opportunity. But the ability to be with someone and just hold the space, I think grief hits us so hard because we're the ones missing them. Somebody's passing is way harder on the people who are still here than the people actually doing it. And there's story after story about people finally crossing over when they get permission. And I think when we're in the throes of how can we keep them here longer, that lack of permission can actually extend the amount of what we would perceive as suffering. And so even though I didn't want any of them, like, that's my whole nuclear family, I'm the only one left, but I would not have wanted to extend their stay on this earth for my benefit. I was able to try to the best of my ability to hold the space for what they were experiencing and make it about them, and how could I help with what they were going through. And humor led a lot into it. There was a time when Lauren is my sister, close to the end, and she was mad. She was like, I don't understand why I'm still here. Like, I am so ready. Why can't I just go now? And I'm like, you know, everything is energy, and we know that when we can be responsible for the way we feel, it's going to help. And right now, your energy is angry. I don't know if that has anything to do with why you're still here, but what if we worked to shift that? Like, what if we said, oh my gosh, when you finally go, you're going to have the most amazing reunion because mom and dad are right there waiting, and let's just get excited again and see if we can shift that. So that was her commitment. And every day I would go to the little calendar and I would rip off a day, and she would say, today's an amazing day to die. Today's a great day to die. And we just tried to stay light and humorous. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't go somewhere else and cry, but I was able to hold the space for what she needed because she was so ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you can experience multiple emotions at the same time. Like love and sadness exist in the same capacity, in the same way.
No doubt.
Yeah, and I guess our attitude toward it. I mean, it's just such an inspiring story of what you've done, and you've leaned into. You've leaned into this idea of joy amidst tragedy, amidst grief, and it is amidst that kind of grief, or even the challenges we face, that we can find our meaning. And you found that. And would you say that those experiences have kind of shaped where things like the Alchemy of Joy have come from with you?
Oh,
and can
yeah.
you touch on that? Yeah.
Yeah, so The Alchemy of Joy is one of my keynote titles, and to me, joy is our natural state. If you can zoom out from our human experience, the state of the essence of what we are, like the spiritual state, is joy. But in my opinion, and when we're in this human experience, we have these ups and downs, and we're the ones who assign any meaning that an experience has. We would call something good or bad. But to me, it's way more than our labels of it. And so it's only bad if I let myself assign the label of it being bad. So if I can believe that joy is my natural state, then I can see anything that is less than joy is a gift. It's a gift to bring to my awareness that there is something in me in need of healing. And when I heal it, I can return to joy. So in that sense, everything is a gift. In fact, my sister wrote a book, Holy Shift, Everything is a Gift. Because of this philosophy we kept turning around together, it's, can we see that everything that's happening is happening for us, no matter what it looks like? And so anything that feels like a contraction, or I don't want to be here, it's not going to last forever. As reliable as breathing, contraction is followed by expansion. But don't get used to it, and don't set yourself up for disappointment that should be the destination. It will always be followed by a contraction. And so if that is as reliable as breathing, then when I'm down here, instead of hating it and giving a lot of energy to the evidence of what is, why not just say, I can't wait to see what's next, right? Like, it's going to be followed by an expansion. So this might suck, but I know that expansion is coming. I don't know what it is. I'm going to get out of my own way. I'm going to ask for guidance, and I trust you are bringing it, right? And then in here, in this expansion, like, man, I can't stress enough that why should we ever think that there is a destination where we should arrive when we no longer feel the ups and downs of life? That is crap. Like, even the most spiritually enlightened, we're gonna have those ups and downs. It is because what feels like a contraction is an opportunity to be the witness and say, why don't I like that? Why doesn't that feel good? What is mine to do? What is mine to learn so that I can return to my natural state of joy? And I want to do that more and more quickly, more and more readily, more and more dependably. Let's call that my bounce back factor. I just don't want to stay here long. I want to figure out what that is so that I can expand again.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I love that. It gives us an opportunity to be mindful, to have that mindfulness and get curious about it. I love that. And you know, it speaks to the fact that when we're going to go through these ups and downs, you know, we have to have the downs to have the ups. I mean, we have to have that. If we're always having ups, there's a hedonic adaptation that occurs, and we're just going to get used to that as our new normal. And yeah, so we have to have that challenge in order to overcome it. I mean, so I love that embracing aspect of it.
And that's what I mean by the alchemy of joy. You are an alchemist when you say, this thing is not who I am. I have the chance to transmute this energy into something that maybe not joyful, but at least less oppressive. And so I want to use my skills as an alchemist to make decisions. I want to think about things differently.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So, and how do, within all of this work that you're doing and finding joy and doing this amazing work of helping people to find that joy, how does that translate into how you're helping leaders, how you're helping brands, how you're really working in the world to lift other people up?
Man, I think those are different questions because like leaders, there are so many leaders who have parts of their life in different silos. Like they have this rich spiritual connection and then they go to work. And so they're coming to me saying, I want to be able to imbue the work that I'm being called to do with the truth of who I am spiritually, and I'm struggling with that. And so how can you help me shift that? And so we just talk about how do you have conscious conversations? How do you come from a place that serves the greatest and highest good, not just the agenda of the company or the pressures that you have as a leader? And so there's a lot of work like that. When it comes to a personal brand, I would say that joy comes into play when people inevitably feel imposter syndrome. As we get clear on who we're being called to serve and how we're going to do that, we suddenly think, who am I to think I can do that? And then we start comparing, like, this is not new. There's so many people saying this. But the bottom line is, with billions of people on the planet, if you find out what that truth is for you, if you claim that North Star, you are a magnet to the right fitting people. And so we're not going to slay the dragon of imposter syndrome once. We're going to slay that dragon daily or moment by moment, because we have to remind ourselves building a personal brand is really not about me. It's about the people I'm being called to serve. It's about me stepping up, getting out of my own way, allowing myself to be vulnerable and present. And like, I think personal branding a decade ago, people thought it was a vanity play. Thought it was like, oh, you just want to be another, like a Kardashian wannabe kind of thing. And now we're really getting clear. No, as a species, we're evolving. We do not want to put our money into a company whose leaders are hiding behind the reputation of the company. We would much rather do business with companies whose leaders' values align with our values. But if you don't have a personal brand, how does somebody know that? If you aren't out there, and it's not that you're trying to be showy, it's that you are establishing what you stand for in a public way so that people can feel, oh, you are my person, or you're not. And that's just as important, because when people feel they're not your people, you aren't wasting your time with them and they're not wasting their time with you. So who are you, and how can we articulate the problem you solve, your uniqueness, how you do what you do in such a way that the right fitting people are magnetized to want to work with you?
Yeah, I struggled with that too. I mean, and you mentioned it, it's a daily process of struggling with that imposter syndrome. I struggle with that daily, and it's huge. And I think that plays a role into what you were talking about, where I fell into that same boat of, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be narcissistic, have this personal brand and put myself out there like a Kardashian and all this kind of stuff. But then I think that's one of the things that you helped me to understand, is that we all do everybody has personal brand. Everybody has a reputation. That's really what it is. And so now it's all about, all right, how do you want to spark that influence? Because as leaders now, we have a responsibility to use that influence that we have in the right kind of way and in a powerful way. And when it's aligned with our values, when it's aligned with our mission and our power, well, that's, where our personal brand lives.
Yeah. Let there be no mistake. You have a personal brand. If you haven't created a personal brand, then it's been created unintentionally. Because a reputation, a personal brand, is nothing more than what people think of when they think of you. So if you're not crafting that with intention, coming from your character, then it's happening by accident. And so we just want, and that's hard work to really pull out from you what you already know about who you serve and how you want to serve them. We're too close to it to be able to do that for ourselves. And there's a lot of assumptions that are misunderstandings, like, I don't want to niche down because that implies that there's people I don't want to serve. And really what I do is going to help the whole world. No doubt about it. But if you try and appeal to the whole world, you end up appealing to nobody. So part of refining and declaring who you are, what you do, how you do it, and who you do it for is more so you can break through the noise and be seen for that person that you want to be the person for this thing. And that only happens with that kind of clarity. So the more we kind of hide behind I don't want to upset anybody, I don't want to turn anybody away, I don't want to have this be like an ego thing where I'm out there. Those are misconceptions, and we just need to educate people that being out there is your willingness to be vulnerable, even when it's uncomfortable. It's your willingness to stand up for something and publicly let people know who you are and what you're about, knowing that some people are going to go, you're not my person, and that some people just aren't willing to do that. But when you are, it actually helps you grow your business in miraculous ways because it's just that clarity.
So finding that clarity, that's something that you all helped me do tremendously with this process is find clarity. And it seems like it became not easy, but simpler to at least be okay with the naysayers, so to speak, that aren't okay with it. But that imposter syndrome is powerful. I mean, would you say, is it fair to say that imposter syndrome is rooted in fear, that it's rooted in fear of pushing past that?
I would say imposter syndrome is just like the new trending way to say lack of confidence, and lack of confidence is basically a fear of how are people going to perceive me. And there's nothing wrong with coming from ego. But as soon as we can recognize my playing small, my lack of confidence, my giving in to fear or imposter syndrome is a play of the ego, the more we go, I'm not going to let the ego run the show. I am committed to doing this. And so the ego is also a gift. The ego is demonstrating for you that you have this fear, and that fear is something that you can move beyond if you recognize it for what it is. The fear is encouraging me to stay in my comfort zone. My comfort zone is what I know. My comfort zone is safe. How can I serve more people if I'm going to stay safe? So yes, I would definitely say imposter syndrome is fear in a not so clever disguise after all. Yeah.
Do you still deal with that yourself? I mean, you've worked with billionaires, you've worked with all sorts of influencers and leaders, and you have this incredible reputation. Do you still deal with it? And if so, how do you manage it in your life?
I appreciate what you're saying because you're building me up so well, but you could look at my social media and know I still suffer with imposter syndrome. I don't put myself out there as consistently as I teach other people to do. And just to be transparent, that happens because I play the game. My ego is saying, you've got so many people to serve. You can't possibly make time to do that. Like, I've got all these clients to serve. No, that's just crap. I need to be more disciplined about putting myself out there more consistently. So I think even the best of the best would admit that imposter syndrome or fear of showing up is still a dragon that they need to continue to slay.
Yeah, so it's a constant battle. That's really, really good to know. And I think that could be encouraging to a lot of people that they're not alone in this imposter syndrome thing. Just recognize it. And I love that you're flipping it on its head and saying that, playing small or giving into that ego in that way is, it's letting your ego play it. It's almost selfish to play small when you have these talents to give.
And if I took my own advice, I would say, Kristen, it is not about you. By not showing up, there are people who will not know about how you can help, whether it's building a personal brand or helping leaders or, spiritually open-minded people with breakthrough coaching. They can't know about you if you're not out there. So I have to continue to be more brave.
Yeah. Well, speaking of putting you out there, I want our audience to know that you have a webinar, a webinar that can help them. So can you speak to that? Can you promote it? Can you tell us where they could sign up for? Because I think what you're offering here, what you're promoting is hugely valuable for leaders, for people who just want to experience more joy, and for people who want to build that personal brand. So
Thank you so much. Yeah, so Breaking Through Belief Barriers is a free webinar that I recorded, and people can go through it at any time. And if they just go to my website, which is KristenHartnagel.com, and then there's a /get-started-BTBB, that's Breaking Through Belief Barriers. And we can have a link in the call in your show notes as well. But that's a chance to go through the 3-step process. So we talked about step 1, which is detaching with amusement. But in this webinar, we're going to talk about steps 2 and steps 3 as well, just so that you can know that a limiting belief is that which wants to keep you comfortable. It's that which wants you to pull up a chair and watch a movie that you don't want to watch anymore. And so this is a 3-step process to break through that.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I would highly recommend that everybody who's listening to this jump on that webinar and check it out, because that is one of the most important things we can do, is break through our own belief barriers so that we can serve the world in the way that we need to. And Kristin, I want to thank you for helping me over the last year to do just that with my brand, to help me have the courage to rise above the fear that I have to put this out there and to build my brand and recognize that is my reputation, and to do that with so many others through Brand Builders, through Evolve Now, through everything you're doing. So thank you so much. So you mentioned your website. Is that the best place for people to find you, or is there anywhere else where you'd like to ask people to find you?
Yeah, well, KristenHartnagel.com is really where they can see kind of everything that I'm doing, but I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn and all the places. So the Kristen Hartnagel, that might be hard to spell, Hartnagel. But let me just say it's been an honor and a privilege to just walk alongside you and help in any way that I can as you're building something amazing to help people go from fear to flow. So thank you for what you are doing in the world.
Thank you, Kristin. It's my honor. It's my pleasure. So grateful you're here. And until next time, everybody, have a great day.
You too.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.